Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So, sorry for the delay on this one. I've been looking this up, trying to figure out if there's more information about what I'm going to talk about. I have not found anything else on this, which makes it even that much more weirder that that's kind of what these guys got together to do. Apparently, a DNC panel has come together that says anybody who runs in the election must be a Democrat and must espouse these kind of democratic values and must be clear that they're running as a Democrat if they're going to take the nomination in 2020. A panel ruled this. This is bizarre on a few fronts, and I don't like the language per se because it's nebulous. It's hard to know what that means and what they can do if they think you break the ruling of or break the language. I'll show you what I mean. So this is the Hill. DNC adopts rule requiring candidates to run and serve as a Democrat. You must run and serve as a Democrat. Bernie Sanders runs in the Senate in an odd way. So the way he takes it, he would run as a... How would he do it? He would run as a Democrat. And then at the end of the process, so he would run in the Democratic primaries. And at the... Is that right? Yeah. And at the end of that race, usually he wins. He wins overwhelmingly. He would then decline to accept the nomination from the Democratic Party, if that makes sense. So it's, I'm an independent. I'm continuing to be an independent. I'm separate. And I don't even like the term independent, because independent gives across that you're independent from the two parties. Enshrined in the languages itself builds up this idea that you have two parties. I don't like it. Call it something else, but whatever. I'm an independent senator from Vermont, Bernie Sanders. I am not part of either of these parties. However, despite being an independent, which is what I am running in the democratic process. Me running in this process in no way changes the tenor of what I am. I'm still an independent. I'm just running in the process. It's like, you're a human being walking through a tunnel. It doesn't necessarily mean that you yourself are at the tunnel. You're still a human being walking through the tunnel. Now he does this for very specific reasons. So at the very end of the process, he declines the nomination. Nope. Thank you for giving me the nomination from the Democratic Party, but I am, after all, the independent senator from Vermont, so I must turn you down. Now, in doing this, when he runs in the final election, he doesn't really have another challenger from the Democratic side. Ultimately, he's won that during the primary process, and for the most part, have been able to get rid of his competition. The only person now he's running against is the Republican. It's an interesting way of running. It allows you to not necessarily... It kills your competition from the standpoint from the left or from something that's the faux left, the moderates. Now, is it possible? I'm cynical. So I look at this when I first saw the story and I said, they did this to spit in Bernie Sanders' eye. This is just a... fucking socialist. That's the way I take it. But is it possible that they think he's going to do the same thing if he runs and wins in 2020? I am being overly kind when I say this, so is what it is. But is it possible they think Bernie Sanders is going to run in the Democratic Party and he's going to not accept our nomination as a Democrat? That would just seems weird, or at the very least, or that doesn't make sense. Yeah, that doesn't make sense for the primaries. Yeah, I'm going back to my original thought. The reason why I said it doesn't make sense in the primaries is because either you run... They want him to run as a Democrat. That's essentially what it boils down to. But he was running as a Democrat anyway. I don't quite get this. This is weird to me. This is why I thought initially this was put a thumb in his eye. When Bernie Sanders ran in 2016, he became a Democrat. He literally sucked himself into the mud of things and became a Democrat. Ran in the democratic process. If he ran in 2020, he would have to do the same thing again. I don't necessarily know what they think, unless they think he would govern. Maybe that's what it is. Sorry, I'm working it on my head. I had a very clear idea, or I had a very thought in my head with this idea that this is just to put their thumb in his eye. But as we went on, I started thinking to myself, is it possible that there's something else that they're concerned about, that they were trying to head him off at the pass from doing? Is it possible that Sanders would win the nomination and then become an independent again as he ran against Trump? Is it possible? It's what he does for the Senate. It's possible that that's what it is. Okay. Sorry. It took me a while to work that out in my head. But I think, is that possibly what they're concerned about? In the same way he does as the Senate, kind of use it as a quote-unquote Uber in the way that Joanne Reed said, but to get from point A to point B, and then says, okay, now I am no longer a Democrat. I am now an independent again. Well, if that's true, Bernie Sanders has just trounced the entire Democratic establishment. And he's now saying, I'm an independent, which means a Democrat is no longer in the race going into the main election. That would effectively destroy the Democratic Party from the standpoint of a presidency. You, for the first time in God knows how long, would have a Republican and an independent in the race for president. Is that possible, what they're thinking? I don't know. My first thought was this is just put mud in their eye. But if I'm trying to be fair about this, he does that in the Senate. And the only reason I would think this way now is because I know I covered the story about how he does this in the Senate, where he runs in the election for the Democrat, beats away the challengers, and after he beats away the challengers from the Democrat, he says, I'm still an independent. World is great. You have a Republican versus Bernie Sanders, an independent in the race for Vermont senator. That would effectively destroy the Democratic Party if he did that. And is that what they're terrified of? Fascinating. Let's take a look at this. This is the story. The Hill. The DNC panel adopts a rule requiring any candidates to run and serve as a Democrat. I think I'm right on this. I think I'm right. The Democratic National Committee adopted a new rule on Friday aimed at keeping outsider candidates like Bernie Sanders from trying to clinch the Democratic presidential nomination in 2020. The new rule adopted by the DNC Bylaws Committee require all Democratic presidential candidates to be a member of the Democratic Party, Yahoo News reported. A presidential candidate running for the Democratic National nomination must be a member of the party, accept the nomination as a Democrat, and run and serve as a member. This is my point. The only thing that changes here, Bernie Sanders, when he ran last time, ran as a Democrat. That's kind of my point. This doesn't stop him from running in the Democratic nomination, which is why I don't necessarily think it stops him from running in the Democratic nomination. It just says you have to be a Democrat. He was planning on running as a Democrat anyway. Unless there's something about this that I'm fundamentally missing, this does not stop him from running. What it does stop him from doing is I'm running, and then I am leaving the party immediately after winning the nomination. I don't necessarily think that was Sanders was trying to do anyway, but whatever. Let's keep going. Sanders, who has maintained his status as an independent, fought a tough primary race for Democratic National Committee against Hillary Clinton in 2016. A source familiar with the discussion told Yahoo News, however, that the rule wasn't targeted at Sanders. Sure it wasn't. Because there's some other independent that's running in the race that may run as a Democrat. Randy Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers and DNC member, posted a photo of Twitter of the rule change. Let's see. Public writings, public statements affirmatively demonstrates that he, she, or they are faithful to the interest, welfare, and success of the Democratic Party of the United States. That's what it is. They're terrified of that. They think he's going to destroy the party and will participate in convention in good faith. At the time of the presidential candidate announces their candidacy publicly, they must publicly affirm that they are a Democrat. Each candidate pursuing the Democratic nomination shall affirm in writing to the national chair of the Democratic National Committee that they are a member of the Democratic Party, will accept the Democratic nomination, and will run and serve as a member of the Democratic Party. and bake a cake for the Democratic Party and chew Democratic Party bubblegum and sniff Democratic farts. At the time of the presidential, I read that part. In March, the DNC voted to acknowledge a need to reduce the influence of so-called superdelegates in the presidential primaries. The unelected delegates who are supported by candidates for the party, regardless of the state's victor. Here's the thing. They haven't gotten rid of superdelegates. They voted to acknowledge the need to get rid of. It's something different than them getting rid of superdelegates. It is laughable that this guy believes that it's not about Sanders. Laughable. I don't even see why you would say that with a straight face. Why on earth would you? I know of no other socialist that's running in the race that runs as an independent that has a potential to win your primary process, and if doing something like he does in the Senate, step away from it and destroy your party completely. I don't know another person. Maybe there's another Democrat that's doing it. So yeah, here's mud in your eye, Sanders. Here's mud in your eye, Sanders. Dave LH, the Constitution makes no mention of political parties at all. That's right, agreed. Which is why I don't like the term independent. I mean, it's like I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I'm an independent. You, independent, is relative to the other two parties, as if the other two parties are somehow bellwethers of a fucking planet. They're not. They're not in the Constitution at all. These two parties, for the most part, they game the system in a way that makes it as if they're standards. It's fucked up. If he runs Democrat, then vote blue will not defeat him. I don't know what that means. I don't know what vote blue is. If he runs D, then vote blue will not defeat him. I don't know what that means, Trudy. I don't know what vote blue is. Alabama has a law that prohibits voters from switching their political party allegiance between a primary and subsequent runoff. Are you serious? But does not require primary voters to register with a political party. That's so fucked up. I wish you were wrong, Garden, but I think you're right. Spot on fucking. You're spot on fucking. Garden is fucking somebody? What? Vote Democrat. Oh, I see. Vote Democrat won't stop him. Will not defeat him. Oh, you're talking about will not defeat Trump. Okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. I thought blue meant Democrat, but I didn't understand it within the context, so I didn't think you meant Democrat. I understand what you mean. I get it. Winkle the Bernie Bro. In just spite, the DNC Rules and Bylaws Committee is all Hillary and Perez people. It was purged of Bernie people. I bet big money the DNC will come out and say they will only get rid of 25% superdelegates. We will only rig it 25% less. I gotta be honest, I don't know why anybody would support that process, knowing full well that process is rigged. Even before they start the process of the election itself, just the very act of the political process itself, the way they go about their affairs is problematic. And you're going to unrig it by 25%. Bask in my greatness. I am helping you poor slobs out by unrigging it by 25%. Aren't you happy now? Aren't you satisfied? Is this what you've always wanted? Yeah, that's insane. Who else got their Jane Sanders money begging email today? Oh, did I get a Jane Sanders? All right, I'm curious. I want my Jane Sanders. Oh, I got it. I got one, Bob. Jamal L. Thomas, thank you for your support during the first year of the Sanders Institute. We've had strong and promising first year and have exciting plans for innovation and successful initiatives for the future. We couldn't have gotten there without your help. Can we count on your support as we continue to shift from framework of debate in a progressive direction and provide bold, progressive solutions to economic, environmental, racial, and social justice issues? Express donate $10, $27, $50, $100, and let's just jump the fucking shark and go to $250. Garnome, I agree, Jay. If by some miracle Sanders made it in the office, he will be ineffectual. You guys are jumping the fucking shark. He's not even in office, and you're already dogging what's taking place. Pessimism is not a survival trait. That's what I would bestow upon you, my listeners. Pessimism is not a survival trait. I've gone through my life not dealing with the thing of being not pessimistic, and not being a worrywart. And I've had an exceedingly difficult time in this life dealing with limitations, and in none of those times was pessimism the thing that got me through it. I suspect that in a political context and in a wider context, those same lessons that you learn from an individual standpoint apply to larger systems. Just like when you're playing chess, just like when you're doing judo, those things usually apply to larger systems also. I wouldn't necessarily make the assumption that Sanders getting in office will be ineffectual any more than an FDR getting in office was ineffectual. So, or a Ronald Reagan getting in office was ineffectual, for that matter. And ineffectual, or effectual in the wrong fucking direction. You guys are so accustomed to somebody not doing shit. I would say suspend your belief if that's what you need to do. But ultimately, just because you're accustomed to people not doing shit doesn't necessarily mean that everybody is just not going to do shit. The world changed. People have different dispositions. It's very possible that things change. The one constant that we have is change. Within the context of a human lifetime, it feels like nothing changes because things are so slow to move and everything else. The people who were part of the Soviet Union, shit changed. Changed for the worse in some regards, seeing as like millions of them died after the changeover. The United States saluted them. In Iraq, things changed. You went from Saddam to hell on wheels and shit and piss from the standpoint of living. I'm making the point to you that things change, even from the standpoint of the New Deal politics or Trustbuster coming in office. People never thought that they would get to the thing where these barons of industry would ever get taken down. Again, things change. One of the constants in this world is change. I'm not necessarily going to be pessimistic of something that hasn't necessarily taken place. By the same token, yeah, I am somewhat cynical of it. Can I suspend the cynicism a bit with this idea of pushing forward something? Yes, I can. And I suggest that if the goal is actually to get something done, you do the same. Just my suggestion. Just my suggestion. Bob Jamal is saying fall in line and trust the force. No, I'm not saying fall in line and trust the force. And this part really has nothing to do with Sanders and what I'm saying. I'm making a point to you, a very specific point. Something that I've learned in my life. That you position your intellect, you position your... What's what I'm looking for? I guess you position your attention on the thing that's just behind the thing that you want. It's and you assume that you can do it. The assumption is the part that's important. Once you construct your world around this idea of XYZ is possible to do. It is heartbreaking at times because at that point it means keeping something in your head for a period of time and having, this pain associated with the distance between what you want versus what you have. But pessimism is not ever something that I've seen get anybody anything. It's not necessarily trusting the force. It's trusting historical context and acknowledging that within a historical context, any country in the world that you want to think of, things changed. It's constant. It's not something that you have to trust in. It's something you can know. It's one of the few things you can know. Whether things can change for the better from our standpoint, that I don't know. Do I assume that things can't? No, I don't. If that makes sense. There's a certain amount of cynicism, yes. But by the same token, I suspend a certain amount of cynicism because that allows me to kind of push myself forward. But pessimism has never been a survival trait, at least not that I've seen. And usually people construct their world, like the way they perceive the world. Have you ever seen Alex Jones? Let's talk about Alex Jones. So the people who watch Alex Jones and who really love Alex Jones, They're living in a fundamentally different world than you are. Fundamentally different world than you are. Now, you would say that your worldview and the way you see the world is perfectly accurate, perfectly correct, and it's not. No one has an objective point of hello, 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 hello. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? So bizarre. That was so bizarre. That was so bizarre. Yeah, that was so bizarre. They're trying to take me out, man. They're trying to take me out, dog. They're trying to take me out. And the thing that I said, it was the greatest thing ever said. I just said the greatest thing that had ever been said. Damn it. I just said the greatest thing that any man has ever said. You guys have to take my word for it. You have to take my word for it. I can't repeat it. I don't fully remember what it was. I was like Alex Jones and everything went bust. No, look, the point I was trying to make is everybody has a view of the world. And the same view that Bob has or that an Alex Jones type person has. They look at the world a particular way, and to them that world is fundamentally different than the way that you perceive the world. Now, I would say that our view of the world is a little bit closer to reality than theirs. They would say you're utterly crazy and that you're just into the machine, into the matrix and all this other stuff. But they believe it. They totally believe it. If I catch you taking calls again and do. Oh, that's funny. Would you allow me to call in if I catch you taking calls again as corporate Tom? Oh, fuck yeah. Hell yeah. Fuck yeah, Bob. Hell yeah, Bob. Winkle. I'm sorry, Winkle the Bernie Bro. Absolutely, that would be absolutely hilarious. Let me explain this part, and I'll let you call in Winkle, and I'll slice the video at that point. Look, let me try to shorten it. I've had somewhat of a difficult life, especially from the standpoint of physical limitations. And I part of the reason I think that I trend towards this thing of libertarian, if I trend towards libertarian at all, social libertarian, let me say it that way, because the American idea of libertarian is insane. It's off the fucking reservation. But I think I partly trend towards this way of freedom because restriction. Like, you have a body that's, you're grafted as a consciousness onto this mesh of sorts, into this reality space, physical matter reality. You have an avatar that can allow you to pick up things and move things and manipulate things. And that thing gets racked with a certain amount of pain. And this avatar, that's this freeing thing that allows you to interact with your world, is not so freeing anymore. And it's not just not so freeing. The space that you're somewhat trying to escape from is not necessarily the avatar itself, but more so you're trying to escape from being trapped in that avatar, experiencing the things that thing experiences. What I found is people's perception of what they can do ultimately influences what they can do, like in an overt, over-the-top way that many times people don't necessarily realize it. From their vantage point, from their very particular vantage point, just like the person who's watching Alex Jones, who sees that water hose, and that water hose was a snake. The person who says, I don't have the capacity to do X, and really don't have the capacity to do X, is some point a limiting factor on who they are and what they can do. That's not an absolute. There's some things that a person can't do. I can't fly. Me and mental energy, no matter how much mental energy I exert on that, I can't fly. But oftentimes, the very act of setting somewhat of a destination and putting your mind to the point of saying, this destination is going to be taken down and I'm going to do X, hell or high water, especially to the point where it is not an option to do X, I am going to do X, makes a difference. And I'm saying this from personal experience of paying certain consequences, but at the same token, pulling shit off. Pessimism is not a survival trait. And I'm not necessarily talking about ridiculous optimism or optimism to some insane degree where it's just unattainable. But I am talking about not necessarily being overtly pessimistic and trying to go about your affairs. That's all. That has nothing to do with Bernie Sanders. That has everything to do with just typical life and the way you go about your business. In a political space, yes, that does mean, look at Maine for the moment. Look at, what's the other place? Washington State. They are passing things in those states, even up against opposition. It is not impossible. And things change. The thing I was saying before the mic went off, things change. You have situations all through life where things change. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. Iraq might have been a horrible place to live, got a lot more horrible when Bush took over. What was the reality of those people the day before the war versus the day the bombs fell? What was the reality in Libya before the bombs fell? What was the reality in Syria before the bombs fell? What was the reality in America before slavery and after slavery? What about before and after FDR? What about before Trustbuster? Before Reagan? After Reagan? These were definitive changes, changing points, things that have taken place that dramatically changed the living space that people were in, for the better or for the worse. My only argument is things change. And to some degree, us, providing that no great major outside event it's taken place, have some small part where we push and push and push to get to a particular place in the context of those larger changes. Pessimism is not a survival trait. That's my only point. Winkle. Call in, Winkle. Let's see. Winkle, do you know the number? Wesley Walker, I thought that was me. No, that wasn't me. That wasn't just you. Joshua Renshaw, greatest thing a man has ever said because because Hillary Clinton. Greatest thing a man has ever said. It's like, you're sexist. You said it was the greatest thing a man has ever said. No. Trudy, if he wins in spite of the party apparatus, which he almost did last time, the party will have to come to heel. That party would be a blip. See, Trudy, my thing is, if Sanders goes through the process of emasculating himself in order to get into the Democratic process, primaries, and shames himself going through that process and wins. And I don't mean shames himself because he does anything in particular, but shames himself because he puts a D beside his name. That's all the shame he needs. If he does that, the question becomes, if he wins, because I think he would utterly destroy Donald Trump. All the polls that had Trump going against Sanders, Trump lost magnificently. It was shamefully embarrassing to the degree that Trump lost. If he wins, the question becomes, what happens to the Democratic Party? That was the question that we were always asking prior, talking about if he won the election. But if he wins, what happens? What happens? That's a different what happened. What happens? What happens? And see, I think this is where we get into this thing of what do you think takes place within the Democratic Party if you had any changeover? You had New Deal Democrats. So in Britain, you had the Blairites, and they even call themselves New Labour. We're something different. Yeah, you're something worse. You're not even Labour. Same thing with Democrats. New Deal, or not New Deal, third way Democrats. They were a different path of Democrats. They weren't necessarily Democrats in the classic sense that they go about their affairs. Bernie Sanders, some of a classic Democrat. In the same way, you had this changeover of people coming in with Bill Clinton that completely reorganized the way the party apparatus worked. Well, the same thing takes place with Sanders. That's when shit gets real. Jamal likes to reenact political scenarios with his Little Pony collection. Somehow everything turns out okay in the end of each story. No, I don't have I don't think things work out. If that makes sense. I know this sounds, I don't want this to sound bleak, but I don't think things work out. At least not for us. The reason why I don't think things work out, because I don't think we're rational human beings. I don't think we're rational creatures. I with all of the skill and technical know-how that we have, we've concocted a system that made us subordinate to our own creation. I mean, if you want to talk about Terminator and robots and all that other stuff, you can use Terminators or AI as an allegory just for cash. We've been subordinated by our own creation, allowing a few people with the means of that creation to essentially dominate everyone else. People are born and raised into the system, so they accept the system as being fucking awesome and right. And they work themselves all day for somebody else's dime, somebody else's dollar, getting a pittance and a bare subsistence, raising massive amounts of debt as they go about their lives. That's not a life. The people of this planet don't necessarily look at it and acknowledge that that's not a life. Oftentimes they don't even see what a life could be. They think all of this is just, this is how the world is, this is how the world has to be, etc., etc., without ever really asking the question of how should we organize ourselves and how should we organize our affairs, and what's the best way to make sure each and all of us are taken care of. And with that, lessen violence. With that, lessen the stress that people have as they go about their lives. None of these questions are asked. You have climate change that runs rampant. The Arctic, within X number of years, is going to lose all ice. Plastic, oceans, sperm count. Like there is a hellish amount of stuff that we're doing to this planet. Like, even the effect of GMOs, we have no idea what effect that stuff is going to have, talking about on our biology in 50, 60 years. Even from the standpoint of the bumblebees dying off, is possibly an effect for something that we're putting or spraying on the wildlife, on farms. We're doing bad things. I don't have this idea that it works so well. This sounds morbid. I'm sorry, this sounds morbid. But I don't... Even taking all that stuff up, even from the standpoint of our own affairs, just from us interacting with one another, we allow certain nations to remain dirt poor, while other nations squander it on like just military hardware and so forth. The stuff that we do to our oceans and our people, even just the chaos, the brinksmanship of the weapons and all, it's... Yeah, I don't have this idea that things work out well. If that makes sense. Fukushima, and there's Fukushima. Winky, call in and make more entertaining. Yeah, I'm telling him to call in. Go ahead, Winky. I mean Winkle. I'm sorry. Life is depressing. Yeah, that's Gardner's fault. Jeff was like, check your sound. Yeah, I'm going to clip that part out after I push up. Come on, Winkle. Gardner, when love and hate are both absent, everything becomes clear and undisguised. Make the smallest distinction, however, heaven and earth are infinitely apart. Hello, how's it going? Who's calling?
Winkle.
What's happening, Winkle? I thought this was Tom Perez. My bad.
How's it going? Who's calling?
Oh, Winkle, turn your volume down a little bit. I can hear you in the background.
What's happening, Winkle? Hello, Jamal Thomas.
Yes. Who's speaking?
This is Tom Perez, the chairman of the DNC. You may have heard of me.
I have heard of you, Tom. What's going on, Tom?
I think you may find it more surprising that I've heard of you, Jamal.
You've heard... What? No way. I have a small channel on this kind of podunk corner of the internet. How on earth have you heard of me?
Well, the government spies on everyone, but besides that... I've been hearing some of the criticisms you've had of Democrats and of the DNC and of me sometimes.
Well, yeah, Tom.
You would be fair enough to let me respond to some of it.
I'm gonna let you respond to some of it, Tom. But Tom, I have a few questions. When Bill Clinton, it was told that Bill Clinton asked you or told you, almost commanded you to get rid of Bernie Sanders supporters and not let Sanders supporters take over the DNC. Is that true, Tom?
Oh, of course it is.
You're admitting to that?
Oh, of course I couldn't lie about it. I mean, just look at the Rule and Bylaws Committee. There's not a Bernie person on there. I did a great job, because we got to keep the Democratic Party in Democrats' hands. That's the most important thing.
But you've
Bernie's
lost.
always saying he's not a Democrat.
But you've lost 1,100 seats, Tom. You don't think it's time to change it? I mean, this looks horrible. This is this is a horrible failure, Tom. I mean, come on.
Well, now we agree with that, and I was made the chairman just in 2017, so I was not around for all those losses.
No, that's true, Tom. That's true. That's true.
Obama's White House, but
I guess what I'm asking, Tom, isn't it time for a change? Isn't it time for somebody else to take over leadership? You guys have been getting the stuffing kicked out of you by reality show hosts, no less.
Well, that's exactly why I was elected, to bring about the hope and change and unity and leading with our values. And we're putting the hope on the ballot. And what else do you want me to say here? I got to keep my job. Do you know the powers the Clintons and Obamas have?
I do.
You don't want to go against them, friend. Because we're all together here. We got to unite and be together.
Tom,
And then we'll defeat Trump.
Tom,
and
how are you going to convince?
It doesn't matter what policies are doing. Trump is the problem. Then the only way to unite, of course, and that's why we had to sue Russia and WikiLeaks to unite the Democrats.
So suing Russia and WikiLeaks is going. Do you think that of all the issues that plague the Democratic Party, that the way to go about this really is Russia? I mean, is Russia really the linchpin to Democratic success in 2018 to 2020?
Well, I don't want to be Russian to judgment, but yes, of course, it's everything everyone in D.C. is talking about. And how else are we going to beat Trump and his popular ideas? His poll numbers are only going up. So we just got to oust him with Russia.
Tom, I got a question for you. You wrote a letter, and something that I've criticized you on, so I'm going to be honest and outright about this. This pissed me off pretty bad. A letter was found, WikiLeaks, where you sent to, I think it was the Clinton camp, saying to use Bernie Sanders' whiteness to attack him with it, essentially to make him, to tar him as the white candidate so minorities will be radioactive. You talk about your values a lot. Are those representative of your values? And what are your values, Tom? Explain to us, the lefties, the values of Tom Perez. What are they?
Well, of course, I always say that we got to lead with our values. And by leading with our values, I mean, of course, just saying anything that will get people to like us again. It doesn't matter, because we don't really stand for anything. We can't stand for anything. We got to keep that money train going, because if the money train stops, then, well, of course, Republicans will just win and implement their corporatist policies instead of our corporatist policies. It's a game we got to play.
And you're okay with that, Tom? I mean, geez, Tom, you sound pretty resigned to that.
Well, I'm not really much of a leader. I'm just, more of a, just a can-doer. Obama told me that we need you to lead the DNC now. I was like, I've never led anything like that. Barack or Barry, I call him Barry. But yeah, they tell me to do it, and I'll do my best to fuck it all up. They said, because, I came out originally saying that the DNC can't look like it even have the appearance of having its thumb on the scale. And then I come out last week and full-throatedly endorsed Andrew Cuomo in an ongoing primary race.
I saw that, Tom. That didn't seem fair. I mean, ultimately, you've told us, when you took over in the DNC, you said, Tom Perez, pointing at you, said, we're going to be fair and we're going to turn over a new leaf. And that the reason why people were upset was because there was a lack of transparency and a failure of transparency, all this other stuff. A lot of stuff that you said you were going to do, the change to the DNC, it was going to be a new day going forward immediately. And then you promptly fired all of those Bernie supporters. You have Zogby, who's crying man Zogby, who's cries every other day on Twitter, like a drowning man in a missing a life raft.
Yeah,
a lefty.
I can't stand him either.
Yeah. Well, it's not that I it's not that I dislike him, Tom. I just get sick of him complaining as a lefty and staying with the Democratic Party. I mean, you got rid of him pretty quickly when you got in. I didn't explain to me, Tom. How are you going to intrude like that in these elections when you've said you were going to have a fair, even process, and the Democrats weren't supposed to intrude in elections in the first place because you were turning over a new leaf? How do you explain yourself about that? I mean, that's kind of fucked up.
Well, it may seem fucked up, but of course, in reality, it totally is. But I've said this before, when you don't have a seat at the table, you're on the menu. And that's why I had to get rid of everyone that was on the table that was, for Bernie, so they could be on the menu for us to just, waylay into.
Hey,
you can't have Bernie people taking over the Democratic Party because, of course, Bernie's not a Democrat.
Well, but come on, Tom. I mean, he's voted with you guys all the time. I mean, he's been with you guys through thick and thin. Even in this Russia nonsense, Bernie Sanders even agreed with you when you said that same Bernie Sanders, his support was purely because of Russians. He essentially, castrated himself on camera for the DNC. You're still saying he's not a Democrat even after his, he cut his balls off? That's kind of fucked up, Tom.
Well, I have orders. Too many orders from on high. You wouldn't even know the kind of pressure I'm under to make sure that the Democratic Party stays corporatist as it is. So when you say that things need to be fair, and I know I've said that myself before, but as Steny Hoyer, recently got leaked in saying that may not be fair, but that's just reality.
Kicking people out the party.
Deal with that reality.
Well, one more question, Tom. It's very possible, it's very likely, that same castrated Bernie Sanders, who balls in the jar of the DNC at this point, because he's going to
keep them on my mantle.
Exactly. Now, he's potentially going to run again in 2020. High voice and all. He's going to try to enter the DNC primaries. They're trying to get rid of super-delegates, and they're trying to board the ship. They're literally trying to take the party from the corporatist wing of the party. Are you going to give Bernie Sanders a fair shot in this election?
Well, of course I'm going to say that I'm going to give him a fair shot, but we're really not, because, like I said before, I got orders. The money's got to keep on rolling, baby.
Who's giving you orders, Tom? I mean, these are some really messed up orders. I mean, they're telling you to cheat one guy. They're telling you to, hold his balls in a jar. I mean, these are some really rough people, man. Who's giving you these orders, if you can tell us?
I probably already said too much.
Tom Perez, ladies and gentlemen. Tom Perez.
Remember, people, anybody watching Jamal Thomas here, he's a good guy here. He leads with his values, and so do the Democrats, and you got to vote blue no matter who. That's my message. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Tom. Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. I love it. 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 Fucking A, Winkle. Winkle, you and I are going to have to get together and we're going to have to do that officially. That's awesome. I love it. I fucking love it. Absolutely love it. This is the best interview ever. Thanks, Jamal. Shwari Kate. Absolutely, Shwari. Absolutely. Tom, looks like you need to have jumped ship long time ago. Unfortunately, Tom is part of that ship. He's part of that ship. He is part of that ship. He is manning that boat. He is definitely manning that boat. All right, this one is going a lot longer than I thought it was going to go. I'm giving you my spiel on this. I think they're scared that Bernie Sanders is going to destroy the party. I think they think he's going to do what he does, or at the very least, they're trying to head him off at the pass of doing something similar to what he does when he runs for the Senate. Runs in a Democratic primary, and then turns down the nomination. Meaning, I'm running in your primary, I'm destroying all of my opposition in the Democratic Party, I am taking the nomination, or running in the general as an independent. If he does that in the presidential process, it would fundamentally destroy the party. You would, for the first time, have an independent and a Republican running in that race, as opposed to a Democrat. That's why I think they're doing this. Because otherwise, it makes no sense. And otherwise, this is just a thumb in his eye. So, I'll leave it here. Jamal, please talk about the increases in HUD rents and cuts to TANF. I did not know about increases to HUD rents and cuts to TANF. No, now. It's funny. In America, we don't talk about those things. Have you noticed? They avoid talking about that stuff. Sure, yeah. I'm gonna talk to Winkle, see if he can come on more often for something like that. Either Perez, and even expand out to see who else he can do. That was fucking hilarious. It's a good thing Jimmy spat on Alex 2 20. So you saw him chasing down Bernie Sanders. Messed up. I think Sanders will piss and moan for the cameras and then join hands with the DNC. Oh, Bob, I hope not. I hope not. I mean, this is one of those things. I don't know what a Bernie Sanders looks like when he's running in a race that he's trying to win, and that he's not the socialist from Vermont that's in a corner somewhere, but he's actually the person that's in the political space of power. I don't know. I would say you don't either. We've never seen anything like that in our lifetime. Considering the alternatives, would I push for that? Oh, fuck yes. Yeah, considering my alternatives. Yeah, Winkle, that was funny. That was fucking awesome. Trump must cave because of Trump. He's been talking about other stuff at this point. Alright, I'm going to end this here. There's one more I want to do. Apparently, Donald Trump has talked about ending the ban on marijuana. I shit you not. I'm going to do the video, but just so you can see what I'm seeing, make sure we're seeing reality together. And I don't know if this is just Trump blowing smoke. Trump says he's likely to support ending the blanket federal ban on marijuana. Wow. They started the ban on marijuana to cascade blacks and hippies. Richard Nixon thought that they would join into some kind of political union of sorts, and that it would adversely affect his political outcomes. He thought this was a way to essentially split these two groups together and have the potential to be able to cascade them on the evening news every night, and having the cops, the system of government itself, put its boot on both. Not to mention, it takes away their voting rights. It was an awesome ploy from a political standpoint, even though the toll on life shows just how horrible and disgusting Richard fucking Nixon was. A black president wouldn't do that shit, and he checks in both boxes. This is failure and weakness on a level that nobody... When I talk about Obama, and people are like, why are you hitting Obama? Why are you hitting Obama? It's because whether they realize it or not, he had power to do certain things in that office. They act like he was the weakest man on the planet. He was the goddamn fucking president. It's like, come on. It's like, well, he had a Republican, blah, 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 and the Republicans were blah, blah, blah. He was just the president of the United States. That's all he was. That's all he was. If he had the capacity to send flying killer robots to murder people in other countries, and murdering people at such a massive incompetent level, where at some points 90% of the people being hit were civilians, but he's just the weakest man on the planet. He's just the president of the United States. No, he has certain powers in that office and certain things that he can do. The idea that it takes Donald fucking Trump to bring this up as something that he may do is amazing. Utterly amazing. But nevertheless, I'll do that story. Yeah, I do that story. And look, Trump may be doing this because he may be getting money from the pot industry. Who knows? I don't particularly care. I don't like this idea of us putting human beings in cages for smoking a plant. I was watching this video. They were talking about Iran, and they were interviewing people who lived in Iran and so forth. And one of these guys had earrings on, and the cameraman stopped him. He says, "Hey, you realize that wearing earrings is against the law here, right?" And the cameraman, and he was like, kind of this thing of, oh, fuck, for fuck's sake. I feel that way about the pot thing. When we hear that, as Americans, we would say, God, that's stupid. They had a ban on men wearing earrings. That's fucking ridiculous. I mean, fuck, wow, why would anybody do such a stupid thing? But some people think banning people from smoking a goddamn plant is perfectly okay. I'm saying both of them are equally stupid. Both are equally stupid. Nevertheless, let's save that for the very next time. Thank you guys for showing up. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Moscow Mules, Kelly. I told you didn't have to do that, Kelly. Wesley Walker, what are your values? Thank you, Wesley Walker. Thank you, Tune It. It's a good thing Jimmy spat on Alex. That's hilarious. Wesley Walker, I thought my headphones was off. I was flipping. Nah, it wasn't just you, Wesley. It was me. Greatest thing a man has ever said because of Hillary Clinton. That's hilarious. Would you allow me to call in? Oh, yeah, Winkle did that one. Oh, I missed these. If he runs D, then he vote blue would not defeat him. D says vote blue no matter who. Yeah, they do say that. I mean, Bernie will not be beat Bernie will not be beat by a Democrat if he runs Democrat. Yes, that's true. Right. That's what he does in the Senate. That's what he does when he runs in the Senate. He'd have to raise money for Democrats and share the donor list. Interesting. But why would he have to do that? Like, there's nothing in that said he has to do that. Hillary Clinton didn't even share her donor list. They had to pay Hillary Clinton for her donor list. So, I don't see what in this would force him to do that. Like, my issue with this is the language. Like, it's so slippery of the language. What does it mean? Well, does me being nice to you mean I have to give you $20? If I say, if we write a contract that says, you must be nice to me at all times because we're working together, and I sign it, and you say, being nice to me means you need to give me $50, and I say, that doesn't say that in the contract. Being nice to you means something else. Like, I don't see where it says they must give them the donor list in this. Faithful to the interest, the welfare, and success of the Democratic Party. Yeah, if they were asking for the donor list, they needed to have done it explicitly. And I got to be honest, if Bernie Sanders gave him the donor list, I would be done. I would not support Sanders on that. Spooks have got the audio. Okay, I've caught up. Kelly, Moscow rules. Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate it. Just to fill people in on what she's talking about, Moscow Mules. Left forum. I go to the left forum, and I'm in my room after one of the conventions because I didn't get there until Saturday, and the convention itself was it started that morning, and so I get there, I leave my bags, I go wash up, we go to the place, we go to the forum itself, we go to the different events, and towards the end, at the end of the night, I finally get to my hotel room, get dressed and everything else, not get dressed, but put my bags up, and I get a call from Kelly saying, hey, or a text, and says, hey, we're at the bar, would you like to come? We're hanging out. I think it was Brana, Canova, a few people. And we go, we're talking, and it is the wildest thing to have a bunch of lefties just running their mouth, unabashed, knowing that everybody there is also just a lefty, just like you. Like, the value system of the people who are there is not in context. It's not in context. For the most part, fundamentally, everybody have the same idea on how we should interact with one another as human beings, to the person. Now, there may be different ways in trying to get there. There may be different ideas on how far to go with that. But ultimately, this question of humanism was just sacrosanct. It was just understood in the same way air is understood from the standpoint of the lungs. After that lefty powwow, that burst of leftyism, whatever that is, Kelly and I go for drinks because, I'm wide awake. I'm a late, I tend to be an insomniac. And I think she tends to be somewhat of an insomniac. And we're at the hotel. I'm drinking mojitos. She's drinking Moscow Mules. And we're just talking. And 3 mojitos in, I'm doing decent. I'm doing good. Buzzing. Not wasted. But I never really get wasted. But definitely a little ways away from sober. Tepidly inebriated is maybe a good way to put it in it. And I get back to my hotel. I do a video after I get back to my hotel. I wake up plastered. Like, I woke up Sunday feeling like fucking world was coming to an end. What Kelly just gave me was essentially the money for the drinks because I paid for the drinks. But the just before that, though, I did a video. And I was perfectly okay with the video. There was no issues. I was buzzing, but I was intact. But when those 3 hours later, man, 3 hours later, Cloud illusion. You were totally drunk. I wasn't drunk. I was buzzing. I wasn't drunk. I liked your Tom Perez. Honest Tom is funny Tom. Yeah, Honest Tom is awesome. I love Honest Tom. In fact, that's what I'm going to call him. Honest Tom. Honest Tom. Oh, I love it. We've just made a thing, Winkle. We've just made a thing. You shouldn't drink at all, dude. Stick to smoking. What is that? Smoke my liquor. I haven't had anything to drink for years. That was a great video, Jamal. You were shit-faced. I wasn't shit-faced. I thought the video was good, but I wasn't shit-faced. You guys have a different take on what shit-face is. You should drink together rather than last night. Tried it once and lost $100 at poker. Never again. Oh, mojitos? Yeah. Chuck E. Cheese, Honest Tom. He wasn't drunk. He was tipsy. I was just tipsy. Yeah. I was just tipsy. You guys are acting like I was falling off on my face. Like, yeah, that wasn't happening. I was just tipsy. When is the next 420? I tried to do one earlier and I couldn't think of a topic. I couldn't think of a topic. Could not think of a topic. Yeah, just buzz. Alright, guys. I'm going to end this. Thank you all for coming. I'm probably going to do the Donald Trump legalizes pot thing tomorrow because it's getting kind of late. And fuck, it's 10:30. I can't believe it's this late. Alright. He was talking loud. Well, yeah, because my mic was over there. Like, I didn't have my mic with me at the hotel, so I was trying to talk loud to project it for the thing. Wesley Walker, what about Star Trek topic? I can't think of one. I've been trying to think of a Star Trek topic. When I had my figures up, it was because I was going to do a Star Trek topic that day. And I got pissed off about something else and kind of just went on with something else. Winkle the Bernie Bro, probably I can't think of a topic. You had not begun to defoul yourself. Misery Dizzy. I don't think I defiled myself. Back to the Pit by Trina B. Fine. Yeah, I'm trying to think of one, Wesley. Yeah, I'm trying to think of one. I'm not sure. Want to come up. Alright, guys. I can look up Coast to Coast and see one of their topics and get some kind of derivative thing from it. Misery Dizzy. Honest Tom should go viral. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slice it. Is Star Trek is socialist utopia? It's so some people have made the argument. So one of the topics I was thinking about was a rebuttal video from this guy who did one called Star Trek is a fascist government. And I was like, oh, how comical. You don't know what it means. Like, he's not in politics per se. And so he's using this from the standpoint of somewhat of a lens, not necessarily knowing what he's talking about. Those things are perspective. You can look at our country and say it's a fascist government. Ultimately, you have business working in coordination with state with this kind of hidden hand of power behind the scenes with the standpoint of cash. I mean, ultimately, the police, the military, and everything is also used to suppress anything else outside of protecting people with means and with cash. Look at Standing Rock, the way they beat the shit out of peaceful protesters who were there, Native Americans who were literally stealing their land. In Star Trek, in comparison, that's freedom. I mean, ultimately, you have the capacity to, for the most part, do what you want when you want. You have access to the things that you need. School, healthcare, all those things are supplied for you just by virtue of the society itself. I don't think it makes sense from our context because they have a united planet. And the planet itself made the decision to be united. It's not, if everybody decides to do something, how is it fascist? If that makes sense. We've decided to be in a capitalist system. It's like me saying, the people in that system have decided to be capitalists. How fascist of them because they've decided just to be capitalists. That makes no sense. They are choosing to be a particular thing. In this case, they're choosing a society that's sane and rational, that takes care of the environment, that says it doesn't necessarily need to grow infinitely because the point is not infinite growth. It's sane and rational. It's sane and rational. So there's a difference in those things. That's all. When Jamal was 100% wasted in his hotel room, he picked a fight with the lamp because he thought it didn't support Sanders with enough vigor. Is Star Trek anti-capitalist? Yeah, but capitalism has no context there. I mean, it's not. There was an episode where they went back in time, where people from our time came there, and one of the guys was a plutocrat, and he didn't understand how Star Trek was put together. And Jean-Luc Picard, for the most part, looked down on him, but he didn't look down on him in an overt way. He looked down on him because he understood this was our past. And in other episodes, he was embarrassed by the way they behaved in that past. Ultimately, this idea of the capitalist, where you're forcing scarcity. Capitalism is a Ponzi scheme. Star Trek, with a rational society, wouldn't even entertain it. Why would you have a Ponzi scheme in a society where you're trying to make sure people have the things that they need? It makes no sense. If people were sitting on the moon and they looked at the system that they found themselves, it would make no sense. Why do people allow themselves to be in a situation where they're working in order to give a small minority a lot of power and a lot of influence into their political affairs? Why are they working in a way that drains resources from them and exploits their labor for their entirety of their lives, when there's enough resources, enough technology, enough skill to make sure everyone have the things that they need? This, to some degree, is the way that people think. It's not so much that something is imposed on them through force. People themselves have made the choice that this system is okay, but it's like okay in comparison to the amount of crime, the amount of poverty, the amount of mental illness, the analysis, or the money, what is it called, the cost profit analysis, where human beings are less important than making sure that those same human beings can get water. I mean, we live in a really fucking gross, repugnant, violent society. It doesn't apply. It doesn't apply. Yeah, Ferengi. Ferengi are the capitalists. If you've noticed, you've seen Ferenginar, or at the very least on the show, Ferenginar, it is a hellscape. For them, if somebody dies on the street, somebody dies on the street. They didn't have the money. Sucks. Sucks for them. What does that have to do with me? I'm a capitalist. The capitalist system chooses winners and losers. It's not me that's allowing that person to be living on the street. It's the capitalistic system that chooses to allow that person to win on the street. That person wasn't meritorious enough. If that person was meritorious enough, if they were virtuous enough within our landscape and our system, they wouldn't be sleeping on the street, poor, without health care, dying of cancer, with a bad tooth. Just saying. It's how we're utterly vulgar to them, in the same way that the Romans are utterly vulgar to us. This is prehistory. This is prehistory. Star Trek is the best example of a resource-based economy. Yes, thank you, Cannabis Oil. Thank you. Because when somebody says socialist, that's what I mean. It doesn't apply from the standpoint of our models of organization. A resource-based economy is probably the best way to look at it. Technology does the labor. Human beings have become rational in regards to taking care of their society. And the human itself and life itself has taken on a predominant importance in regards to the way we go about our affairs. They're rational. You don't have to force people to be that way. The society itself is reared and organized in a way that when people are growing up, in the same way that people grow up in our society playing violent video games, watching movies where somebody gets, murders 100 people and that guy is the good guy, have this thing of heroes from standpoint of war, and we watch these war games and people getting murdered and killed and mangled, and we're like, yes! He killed 1,000 fucking people. How awesome is that? He's the greatest man alive. Star Trek wouldn't get that exposure to that. They would have no context of that. They would think that those people are maniacs and horrible fucking people, even though they would understand in a loving way it's their culture. That's the way they would look at it. It's fundamentally different. They wouldn't have the same explicit and implicit influences that we would have, if that makes sense. We have a very violent society. You can look at it in the movies. CNN. Just turn on MSNBC. For that matter, go through your movie Rolodex and just look at a bunch of movies. Most of those movies, somebody's getting killed, shot, mangled, stepped on, beaten. And in those scenes, we often cheer. We often say those are the good guys. We have a violent fucking culture. We rah-rah the military as the military goes and murders 1 million people and kills people all across the globe. Our news says that America is doing what's in the best interest of the world as it goes and kills and murders people, giving our allies who are bloodthirsty tyrants a pass, while at the same token calling other people bloodthirsty tyrants and not giving them a pass. I'm saying you have a hypocritical, violent society where this irrationality rules. There is no context in a Star Trek society for how we live. That's how bad it is. This is a dystopian world in comparison. I'm just saying. Just saying. The oligarchs will use technology to kill us all. Star Trek actually is based on Gaddafi's Green Book. I strongly suspect that Star Trek is more of a resource-based economy. I don't know what's in Gaddafi's Green Book. Alright. Sex and violence. Misery dizzy. Depends on sex and violence. If it's consensual. If it's consensual, rock on. Just don't hurt each other and keep your safe word. A dingo ate my baby. Mike of Humanist Report started a change.org petition asking Tom Perez to step down because he's proven he can't be impartial. Put a link in all of your videos and remind people in every vid. I'll find the link. I'll try to find the link. Alright. I'm going to end this. And I don't know, I keep saying I'm going to end this. Look, I enjoy talking to my audience. It makes my videos longer. And I strongly suspect that shorter videos will probably have grown me faster. But the goal is not necessarily to just grow at a ridiculous rate. I would rather grow into a decent base. And I think part of me feels like I started this channel talking to my audience. And I grew this channel talking to my audience. And I want to continue talking to my audience. So, even if I make the videos a bit longer, fuck it, let's do it. Now, that being said, I may make shorter videos throughout the week for some degree or sometimes, but at the end of the day, I still like talking to my audience. So, alright, I'm going to end this. You all have a good and decent night. Don't hurt nobody. And if you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thank you everybody who's helped donate to the channel. You guys are immensely appreciated. Thanks everyone.